Hi everyone, this is Krista Moore with the Krista Moore Show, and we have an exciting talk show today because I'm interviewing Mike Tucker, who is the CEO of NOPA, which is National Office Products Association, and we are going to be talking all things Amazon. So Mike, are you out there? Can you join us today?
I am here.
Yay,
And
great to
thank
see
you for having me.
Yeah, I'm glad that we had this time to really have a discussion around a topic that is on the hearts and minds of many of our audience and viewers, and that is Amazon and what's happening with Amazon and how can they compete against Amazon. And I want to have a really good, candid conversation with you today on that subject. And I consider you the expert. So,
scary.
Yeah. I'm going to ask you to please introduce yourself and let everyone get to know you a little bit before we get started.
Okay, well, thank you. Well, I'm a rookie in this industry. I've only been around for about 4 decades. I started in the industry with the old Faber-Castell company. I was with them about 15 years. Very exciting company to work for. I learned how to sell to the federal government when I was with them, and also was fortunate to be able to sell Uniball products, which took them from being a small kind of minuscule company in the industry to being one of the industry leaders and pretty much having access to any consumers and customers we needed to talk to. After 15 years, I went to work for a dealer out of Tampa, Florida called Allstate Office Products. That was exciting because I was able to branch out into other types of products and categories and still continued to focus on the federal government. We had very successful time there, more than doubled the company's business, and we were one of the initial companies that got acquired by Office Depot when they did their business services division. So I went from working for an independent to being the first government sales manager for Office Depot. That was exciting for a little while, and I negotiated their first GSA contract, which came back to hurt me for quite a few years after that. But
I bet it did.
Not much I could have done about it at the time. But I decided that corporate Fortune 100 world wasn't for me, so I was able to buy my own business at that time, and I bought the George Allen Company in Washington, D.C., which had been around for a long time, since 1948, and was struggling, had some older ownership and leadership, and was looking for an exit strategy. So I moved into there and was able to bring a lot of my federal government business and contracts and product partnerships and relationships with me, and owned and ran that for a little over 20 years. And during that time, I also was partners with Impact Office Products and Tim Flynn. So we combined our companies to be able to share some of the cost and operating expenses, and to also make sure I didn't have all my eggs just in the government basket. And then I sold that a couple years ago and had an opportunity to take over the leadership of NOPA, which I had been actively involved with for almost all of my years as an owner. Mm-hmm. And so that's where I am today. And so I'm a rookie in the industry in terms of running an association, but I've been around for a little while.
Well, and what I love about your background, Mike, is, 4 decades is accurate, but what I really love about your background is you have the manufacturing experience, the government sales, leadership, because you owned your own independent, and, you carried the bag, and you've been around and you've seen all these changes, right? There's a lot going on today with the independent community and the independent world. And there's always changes taking place. But one thing that is kind of very prevalent is competing against Amazon for business, especially with the independents calling on so many small and mid-sized businesses. Amazon is attracting them as customers. So really want to dive into that and do whatever we can today through our interview to help these independents and these small businesses figure out how they can compete, what to say, how to say it, and just help them in some way. So why don't you maybe start out with, give us a little bit of an update on Amazon and what you're seeing out there that small and mid-sized businesses should be aware of.
Okay. Well, first of all, Amazon's tactics haven't changed much. They've always been pretty ruthless in the way they've gone after business, and that all started with selling products below cost, but not as a loss leader or as a sale item to grow a little bit of extra business, but to use it strategically to either take over a category of product or to put another company or companies on the defensive like they did with the book industry so that they could take it over themselves. So, that is a strategy of theirs that's been very effective. Also, this thing called the Amazon flywheel, which is where they use their Amazon Prime and selling things below cost and free delivery to get people caught up in using their website and shopping the way they like them to shop. And then also that attracts suppliers as well. And I don't know how many of our audience have, tried becoming an Amazon supplier, but it doesn't usually work out well for people in our industry, because once you get in there, they use your data against you, and you end up not coming up in searches and finding that other types of products that are more competitively priced, often a counterfeit or gray market product, end up next to you.
Let's talk about that piece for a moment. So you had mentioned that there are, and I'm very familiar with a handful of independents that have taken that, maybe that approach, if you can't beat them, join them, so to speak, and are selling to Amazon, and their products are available on Amazon. And that's what they've decided as a small business they're going to do to compete. Now, and not that they gave up their traditional, B2B or even a brick and mortar, but they're adding that on as another revenue stream, and that is selling to Amazon. Tell me what you know about that and what your thoughts are on that.
The experience I have, and the company that bought my business, the supply room companies, I know we dabbled in that to see what the opportunity was. The fees were so high, 15%, that if you tack that on to most, regularly sold office products, toner, cartridges, paper, so forth, you were automatically not competitive price-wise. But I have talked to a few dealers and I even had some at the S.P. Richards show recently, came up, one guy was so proud of how much he had sold, but then when I said, well, at what margins? And he said, well, low single digits. As a business owner, I know you can't maintain a business for very long with those types of margins. So I've talked to very few people that have been able to do it on a significant scale profitably and successfully. But, knowing what I know about, the school bid business and some toner and paper companies that work on very low margins, I know it can be done if you have a rebate schedule or growth opportunities.
I was going to say, I'm familiar with a couple of dealers that dove into it and really figured it out, and it is a profitable venture for them. Almost a little counterintuitive because they're selling to their competitor, all that kind of crazy stuff. But it's what they needed to do in their market in order to continue to grow and thrive. But so much of it is being very strategic on what products
exactly
that they're selling, ones that they can make money on, ones that maybe are unique and not just a commodity, and where there is a rebate program where they can, make a significant money back in rebates, and how to do it systemically so that they're lowering their whole operating costs around it. So I guess if you're going to do it right? And there's certainly a lot of investment and education that would need to go into that.
Yeah, you don't want to try and throw that one up against the wall. It's going to take a lot of homework and strategy, as you said.
And then the other thing,
against the biggest analytics gathering company in the universe.
And so much about that and it's interesting you said that, because they hired 2 analysts right out of college to help them with all those, that data and figuring out what's going to sell, what's not going to sell, what are we going to make money on, what aren't we going to make on. I mean, it really is all about the numbers at that point. There was something else that you mentioned that I wanted to to ask you about. You mentioned counterfeit. You mentioned products that are not really what they are advertised to be. So tell me what you know about counterfeit products.
That's a big part of what I've been talking about in my presentations this past year. The counterfeit industry and e-marketing and e-sales is becoming a $1 trillion business. That's how much business is going through counterfeits. And the companies, and it's by far, and China is the big, culprit in all this, but it's not just Amazon, it's Walmart, it's Alibaba, it's a lot of these other sites. But the counterfeiters have gotten so sophisticated with their ability to duplicate labels and products, and not only do it well, but do it quickly.
So are you suggesting or saying that it's not uncommon for counterfeiting to be a part of the Amazon supply chain?
Oh, it's a huge part of it, and that's one of the big things that independents should be sharing with their customers, is that you have a secure supply chain. You know the brands that you're buying, the companies that you're getting them from. They're not coming across the ocean from who knows where, to land in that customer's office. So, and if something, wrong does make it through there, they know that they can rely on you to take care of it and clean it up, because that's something that Amazon, that's a real Achilles heel for them right now, is that, they claim they have no responsibility when you get a defective product, even a dangerous product that, works its way into their customers. They just stand back and a lot of times they won't even give you the name of the third-party seller that did the fulfillment. You're totally left, in a vacuum.
What are some other tactics or antics that Amazon is using to aggressively gain new business?
The other thing that is big, well, their expansion into manufacturing. So they're doing a lot of private labeling as well. And I have a slide that I show in my presentation that has probably 100 different brand labels up there. And if you're a shopper on Amazon, they don't put that it's, such and such shoes by Amazon. You just think it's a private label shoes like Zappo or something like that. And you think you're buying from another independent dealer. Well, actually, that brand probably was created after they crushed a couple independent manufacturers and put them out of business, and then stole their designs.
When they saw that it was a popular item, so to speak, right? One of the things that we hear all the time from dealers and small businesses is, what do I say? How do I say it? How do I compete when it comes down to price? And if I can't compete against them on price for all of these reasons, what do you tell these small dealers?
Well, first of all, I think education is huge, and we have a lot of resources on the NOPA website. We have an Amazon library where we post a lot of material. So, in a short interview, I won't be able to cover much of it in detail, but we have a lot of information on there that talks about dynamic pricing and how, Amazon may lowball a price or prices on a regular basis, but they change prices, by the minute, by the hour, by the day. So the fact that you offer consistent prices, you're more often, like 80% of the time, going to be able to offer a better price than what they are. But at the same time, and it's an education thing to just continue to share the integrity of your company, and to, make it something besides price. And
one thing that I want to tag on to something that you said, Mike, is what dealers are asking actually in sending us some questions and chats, is suggestions that you might have on how you educate your customer or even your employees without coming across as negative, or kind of browbeating. Do you have any suggestions there?
Yeah, we do. We have a list of things, and I won't go through them all here, but, develop a policy for price matching and ask certain questions about, is the price they're getting a sale price? Get a screenshot to verify the offer, some different tricks like that. create a list of probing questions when a customer is on the phone. Just ask them things that do they have service with this product? Is there a warranty? What happens if it's defective? Try and find where some of the weak parts are just in conversation, but like you said, not being negative and trying to badmouth Amazon.
Yeah.
And also being consistent about, these conversations, as you and I were talking earlier. Don't make this a conversation you only have after you just lost a big order to Amazon on price, and then wait till the next time it happens again to have that conversation. Be having regular conversations and regular dialogue, and not just with the customer, but with your employees, and also recognize that within your customer, even though you may have a primary point of contact, that's the purchasing agent, with all this buying online and mobile apps and stuff like that, you may have another dozen or so people within that office that are buying supplies off their phone that you don't even know about. So make sure that communication is working its way throughout that customer and not just at the highest levels.
Well, and I'm also going to offer a suggestion based on that question. And this is something that kind of gets me fired up. So I'll just the word intentional and proactive, strategic come to mind. And like you said, dealing with this before it's a problem. So one of my biggest suggestions that I give clients that we're working with is they need to have that conversation and just be upfront and honest, and let's talk about Amazon, the elephant in the room, so to speak. 9 times out of 10, your customers are small and mid-sized businesses. They're probably feeling the Amazon effects as well with the products that they sell or the services that they provide. They get this. Have a conversation, talk about what their needs are as a business, not yours, and create a partnership that is more contractual, that is more professional than just quoting and hoping, actually signing an agreement that, hey, we're going to be your primary supplier of these products, and here's why, and here's all the things we're going to provide to you and for you other than just a competitive price. And I'm going to say this to the audience, that is my recommendation, and you should have a strategy for going out and solidifying the partnerships that you have today, and 2020 is the year to do it. And that's all I'm going to say.
Well, the other thing, when you're talking about this pricing issue, also communicate with your manufacturers, because I've talked to a number of manufacturers that are very frustrated about what's going on with this marketplace stuff as well, where either counterfeits or gray market products or things are being sold, and they're losing the benefit of the sale as well, because if it was a shredder or a printer or something like that, and it got shipped to Mexico or some other, offshore country, and then made it back into the country and is being sold on these marketplaces at a lower price, they lose that sale as well. So when you have these experiences, expose it and let the manufacturer know, because they're trying to find the bad actors and the dirty players and these schemes as well. So that's important for them to know.
We actually learned that the hard way with my book. So we had it on Amazon for, I think it was $17.95, and it's today at $17.95. Always has been $17.95. And all of a sudden, there were 4 or 5 companies. If you went out to Amazon Prime and you saw Amazon's price, and then you saw all these other small book distributors selling it for like $10.95. I'm thinking, how the hell did they do this?
So, you can't print it for $10.95.
So I'm like outraged, right? So I go to Amazon, I fill out a form, file a complaint, and then within a couple of days, that book got bumped back up to the proper price. But I felt like I had to monitor that as, me, myself, and I think that's what's happening. Maybe you can explain that a little bit better when it comes to manufacturers.
Oh, products. Yeah. Well, these guys are professionals. I mean, they become professional counterfeiters is what it boils down to. And the sophistication they have in terms of being able to copy labels and purchase orders and instruction manuals and things like that. Even the manufacturers sometimes, when something gets sent back to the brand owner, thinking that it was from them, have trouble working, through what that, where that product came from and how they got it so close to what it is. But
Yeah.
it's kind of a whack-a-mole type of thing, because as fast as you shut one of these guys down and Amazon finds out about them, they end up popping up under a different company name and doing the same thing all over again. And there's too many of them and not enough cops to police it.
That's right. I want to share with you a real story that we heard just last week. So someone had called here because they were anxious, to hear this interview, and they were sharing. I don't know all the details. Joyce knows it better than I, but I'm going to kind of paraphrase. They lost a large opportunity to Amazon. It was for some machines, and it ended up that it was a current customer of theirs that was a nonprofit customer, but they were selling it for $500 less than the dealer could sell it for. And it was frustrating, right? Like, how do you compete against that? $500 is a lot. So I'm thinking, well, maybe it was a counterfeit product and maybe you could come back and do that. But my mind goes to more, and this is tagging on to what I said before about being strategic and intentional and proactive up front. My mind goes to, how can you strengthen that relationship and partnership that you have with that nonprofit, as an example, so that they never go to Amazon, or you've got it so tightened up, or that they see value in buying from you as a company rather than just the price of those machines. Ends up, if I recall this correctly, that dealer has a machine contract with other machines. That might be a way, right, to add on or tag on. Another example, obviously, we talk about local customer service. I mean, kind of walk that talk, which I'll refer to that in a moment. But then I started thinking, well, it's a nonprofit. I wonder what kind of nonprofit it is. I wonder what's important to that nonprofit. They have a cause, they have a mission. How can I, as a company, tag on to that mission, support that mission? Amazon's not going to do that. So get creative around what you possibly can do. Maybe it's a $500 donation that they can, that they need more than the $500 they're going to save on the machine to balance it out. Or maybe it is to collaborate on some kind of fundraising in the next month, and that trumps the $500 price. So I want the dealers on the line to not get discouraged about these criminal, counterfeit stuff and fight back, but lead it, get ahead of it.
Two things that come to mind while you were talking is, first, and they're very simple. First of all, promote your own website. Everybody doesn't talk about their website like they should, because your website is just a tool for most of us, and we try and keep it up to date, keep the pricing current, and do the things we need to keep it functional. But that also, most companies are trying to control a budget and manage the products that their customer or their employees are buying and the things that they're seeing. And I know, especially when I was selling the government, that was a big selling feature for our website, because they didn't want everybody that was with a government credit card seeing a million different products and sales and categories of products that they shouldn't be buying, that weren't related to their business mission or anything like that. So think about ways you can promote your website to help these companies control their costs and how and where the people are shopping. The other thing is services. The more you're offering in services, because Amazon doesn't do services. So if you have managed print services, if you have coffee and break room, if you have something that gets your people in there to fix things that are broken or readjust them or clean them up, or so it's a recurring reason to be in the office and do something that Amazon, because they're strictly product oriented and hands off, isn't going to take the time or ever be effective at doing.
That's a great point. And I kind of refer to that sometimes as customer, more customer interaction, right? And not just click, and
Well,
buy, but that
we
you
started
have.
selling copiers when I was at George Allen, and we had the Canon line, and we looked at that as an anchor in the office. It was like, as long as you had that copier in the office, maybe they decided to buy something else somewhere for a little while, but you still had a reason to always be going back in there and talking to them and find out what was going well and what wasn't going well, which might open the door back up for you to reclaim your business.
Yeah, and I'll add on to that. It kind of goes back to what I was on a rant about before. Is so all of that is strategic relationships, partnerships, creating value beyond price, putting all of those things together under one nice agreement to differentiate yourself and to get a signed contract, to get a signed understanding of what that relationship is going to entail. I can't pressure that enough. One other thought, we could talk for days on this subject. Thank you. I get fired up. So you were talking about websites and promoting your website. I would like everybody on the line to think about 10 years ago, 5 years ago, what was your online ordering percentage? And we collect a lot of industry data and benchmarks. And I can tell you that only 5 years ago, the average independent was at 40% selling online. And I want to scream about it because it had to have been 20 years ago that they probably heard, get your website, technology, people are going to be ordering online. And there was pushback. No, they want to fax to us. They want to call. And look what's happened. So I'm actually would like everyone to leave this session realizing that the landscape has changed and we have to stop the curiosity, but actually create a strategic plan to retain the business that we have and grow in this different type of market. And I don't know, do you agree with me?
Oh, I do, absolutely. Before I forget, one thing we haven't touched on at all, though, is educating and interacting with your local elected officials. This is an important thing in the process as well. And on the NOPA website, there's a thing called the Local Policy Action Toolkit, and that has some very basic fundamental ways to kind of coach you on how to start that process. What to talk about, who to call to try and get an appointment, and just basically like 9 different things that you can talk to your city, county, state officials about to educate them on how their decisions impact small and independent businesses. And then that's a great opportunity for you to tell them an individual story about you, your company, your customers, and how you've been impacted by, Amazon and some of these big decisions that they make without really taking into account what the impact is on the local community. I've lost your audio, Krista.
Sorry.
Okay.
You have that local action toolkit on your website that I would like to.
On the NOPA website, yep, it's a great, great piece.
And so that can help guide individuals that kind of heard what you were saying about talking to the local officials.
And just a quick addition to that, so some of you may know who Sandy Grodin is as El Paso Office Products. Well, Sandy was very active in his local community and meeting with the elected officials and stuff like that. And not only has he been successful in fighting back Amazon in his local community, he's been impactful on a national level because he was able to get his local congresswoman to introduce a bill that was passed in the House of Representatives requiring Amazon or requiring the General Services Administration to consider multiple types of portals in a new e-commerce law that they're trying to implement. So, this, you never know how big and how impactful just one relationship with an elected official can be. Trust me, I've been doing this a long time, and sometimes it can be frustrating and not productive. I know that, but oftentimes, and especially on a local level, when you're not meeting them in Washington, you're meeting them in your city and your state, your county.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they're real people and very approachable.
Yeah, and certainly small business initiatives. One thing that we spoke briefly about was what happened in Baltimore, and I'd like you to share that story because it's quite fascinating. And I think you even got interviewed this week or last week from the New York Times about the subject. So why don't you fill us in?
Yeah. Well, interestingly, I received a video saying, "Do you know anything about this?" And it was a video of the lady from the city of Baltimore talking about their new partnership with Amazon, how Baltimore and John Hopkins Applied Physics and University were going to be using this platform. And so I knew the company that had a lot of that business, and I called them up and I said, "Do you know anything about this?" And I sent them the video, and the guy's head almost exploded. He was like, "Oh my gosh," he said, "we have been trying to figure out what happened. Our business has dropped off dramatically, and we can't get anybody, you know, with the city or John Hopkins to return our phone calls." Well, all that to say that Amazon was able to go in, you know, in the dark of night and, you know, talk to these officials and get them to make changes to the way they were buying. And then they turn around and try and promote it as something they're doing to the benefit of small business. And, you know, when it gets to that level, sometimes the only way you can combat that is to go in and talk to your elected official and, you know, say, what the heck's going on here? So it's a lot of times politics impact this way beyond, you know, pricing and service. So
Yeah, makes me think
don't be naive.
Well, and all those cities that were so anxious to have Amazon come to their city and put their headquarters in because it would promote jobs, it's likely that there's also some kind of sideline agreement for, you know, for purchases. I mean,
yeah.
I guess.
Well, that's exactly what we think happened in Baltimore. They opened up a large distribution center in South Baltimore, and we think this may have had some kind of a payback associated with it. But you know, we're going to have to deal with that on a political level and maybe even a media type level. That's why we talked to the New York Times, and we're trying to find other people that are willing to expose this for what it is and how it happened, because you know, it wasn't based on service or pricing or any type of renegotiation of a contract. It was simply, you know, handed to somebody on a silver, or like I said, in the dark of night without the incumbent's knowledge.
Well, all I can say is thank you, Mike, because we have someone in your capacity at NOPA that is kind of leading the charge on kind of the power of the independents, and right there in the Washington, D.C. area to kind of be the ear to the ground, so to speak, on what's happening. So I'm thrilled that you're passionate about this, and you know, this is something that you've taken as a personal challenge and can share it with us. So thank you.
Well, thank you. Well,
yeah, and you and I are going to be at Prevail, so I wanted to tell anyone that's on the line, you know, come up, meet Mike and I in person. We both have booths. We're both speaking, and we'd love to see you face to face. So please come up and speak with us.
And also, just a quick plug for we're going to be doing a survey at the show, which we're trying to get feedback on things that are important to NOPA members. So you'll have these if you go to the show. Will be in your registration bag. We'll be passing them out in the booth, but we're going to have a drawing for an iPad. But it's just 10 quick questions. But we're trying to get a feel from customers and dealers, you know, what's important to them that the association focus on. So we'd love it if you'd be on the lookout for that, and please complete one.
That's great. I appreciate that. We're also going to share a slide so that if anyone would like to get a hold of you or get connected, or maybe where to go to download that local action toolkit that you referred to,
sure.
or to learn more about what NOPA offers.
That's great. That's my email address there, and I'm pretty easy to find. I don't hide well.
Sounds good. All right, Mike, thank you so much for joining us. I'm getting some great comments in from the attendees. They love the show and look forward to meeting us in person at Prevail.
Well,
So I will talk with you later. Take
all
care.
right. Thank you very much, and have a great rest of the day.
Great.
Take
And for
care.
all of our attendants, just know that we're live every Wednesday at 2 o'clock, and we look forward to seeing you next week. Thank you.
Bye-bye.